Like me some comments? I really do. I like me some comments? Don't care about you. I like me some comments?
I'll do then. Yeah, it's Kickstarter webcomic is this. I've not seen a physical copy if they're out and about, but I've not looked too hard for one either, to be honest. So if I've overlooked out in that respect, don't get carried away with yourselves if you know any different. So you know a bit more about comics, big friggin' deal, man. Yeah, this kicks straight off in first couple of pages back in 1967 with our boy Banning on a bus to Boston, getting a bit of ag due to a peace sign on his rucksack and trying to chat his way out of a good hiding off a couple of hamheads who reckon he's one of them hippies. One of them pulls a blade and they both regret it fairly instantly. Our hero then gets unfairly hoyed off by the driver but lands on his feet and straight in the middle of a peace rally, shoulder to shoulder with some friendly cats who share him some hefty bifter. They also talk him into diverting his Boston-bound trip by heading off to Washington DC. We crowd their lot, intent on storming the White House, and when the sugar really starts to go down and folks start dropping, he don't pull his special punches, man. And from there we've got your flashback backstory, filling in a few gaps about our hero's home life, while our merry band head off in a mighty fine VW camper, hotly pursued by all manner of wrong-uns, and more of the fair share of old Bill and whatnot to help spice up the story. A few twists and turns roll in from there, and try not to do spoilers really, so I'm not going to be too specific in that respect as it all plays out. I will say there's a fair helping of mutant vibes, Secret Service doings, nods to them there Illuminati and whatnot, and the old double cross, triple cross numbers, heroes, villains, the lot. And yeah, it's not too deep, but it's not supposed to be, I don't think. It's a knockabout job. You can skip right through in a couple of hours if it sounds like your sort of satchel. Tad idealistic perhaps here and there, but when you consider the characters it don't feel over-egged in that respect, I guess. Not massively so, any road. Worth mentioning, I guess, how each issue ends with a few musical suggestions to help you get into character. And there's some decent kit gets chucked on playlists, stuff like West Coast Experimental Pop Band, The Seeds, The Kinks, etc, etc. It's a nice little touch. And on the whole, you know, it's right enough, mate. Now then, as with the lion's share of this here quote show unquote, this is probably a bit self-indulgent, but you know, here we are. Deal with it. Now, when I were a nipper, my grandma and granddad let me stay up too late when I was stopping at theirs and watch a bunch of scary stuff that got shown late weekend nights on BBC Two normally. To be honest, a lot of them memories melt certain films in together, and it's only rewatching certain bits and bats as a quote grown up unquote that I've been able to unpick some of it. Clearly bits of Amicus stuff and a fair whack of Hammer, all boss stuff, and pretty perception shaping kit looking back. Now, got to say, I was never that frightened by most of what I saw, cause most of these like vampires and whatnot lived absolutely yonks back, as far as I could see. So no fear there really. It were only when I got exposed to a few bits and bobs where the horror was transposed to like the modern day, to scenes with flash motor cars and folk dressed up in relatively contemporary shoes and whatnot, did it start to bother me. Stuff happening in daytime as well. The terror were getting closer somehow, and that freaked me out a bit as a kid. And this is where this short Just Imagine comes in from Out of Forbidden Tales, The Dark Mansion. Me and my mum and our kid had gone camping over at Eddisford Bridge, as we did. I'd have been about 7 or 8, I reckon, and there used to be a little shop on site selling all kinds of kit. Double-deckers and panda pops and that. But they also had a pile of old comics for pennies, 2p each I reckon. So I picked up a decent stack. And fairly heavy weather while we were there, and it were windy this night. And this little few pager got in my little head for some reason. There's this American couple out and about in like semi-rural England, kind of like I were. But I correctly called it my holidays instead of a vacation. But yeah, they rock up to Stonehenge, and the dude is one of these here skeptics who ends up faulting tour guide's romantic view of days gone by with his cynical demeanour, which proper wheeze off his wife no end, 'cause she's digging it all the most. So he wanders away on his Todd for a bit, nods off, waking up on his own in the dark, which always bodes incredibly well, doesn't it? Well, next news out the blue, these heavy-looking hooded cats appear from the shadows, coming on like a spooky set of scaremongering Jawas or something. And, well, no spoilers, obvs. So you'll have to check it out for yourself to see how it all panned out for him. But I mean, how do you reckon it panned out for him? Yeah, manky-minded muppets. Now this is a good un. Flipping well good, in fact. This Jimmy Corrigan comped a newspaper strip along with some stuff previously out in the Acme Novelty Library series that I've got to hold my hands up here and say I were ignorant to until graphic novel showed up. Never even heard of it till then, and only picked up on it when this won a first book award in Guardian newspaper, which were about a year or so after it initially come out, so I well slept on it initially, I'm ashamed to say. At least I'm happy to admit I'm not perfect though, eh? Unlike you deluded Derricks, who reckon the shine all they don't smell. First thing that hit me on the initial pre-buy quick flick through were just how lush the artwork is. Loads of little beautiful detailed shots that patch together to build the sort of boss little world that your man Edward Hopper would have been chuffed to have laid down. And our blue-collared kitchen sink hero Jimmy is a meek and mild kind of fella, seemingly socially awkward but kind of cute with it, like, you know, who sets off on an odyssey to meet his old man, who he's never known growing up, and how that journey pans out for him. The main story is cut through with tales of Jimmy's grandpa as a kid and the type of relationship he had with his old man. And as you'd expect, there's a few parallels to be drawn there with established family dynamics and personal inherited traits and whatnot, like most of us have got one way or another, whether we like it or not. Never feels overbaked or soppy though this, and it adds perspective at times, I think. Though Jimmy's dad hasn't been in picture for a good few years, his mum has, albeit remotely, by phone since Jim got the courage together to snip the umbilical cord and move away. She still looms pretty large in his little life though, and while it's clear as crystal that the old bird loves him to bits, she continues to peck away at him in a way that's seemingly done him more harm than good down years. Philip Larkin, eat your heart out, man. And the way that the story unfolds and literally the way it's set out makes it simple to see why this has become so well regarded. I've clocked the odd review here and there likening it to James Joyce's Bane of Literary Students, Ulysses, or Homer's Odyssey perhaps. But I'm not seeing that really in a cohesive sense, though perhaps in parts at a push, maybe. For me it's quite a personal journey, but one that anyone who's ever felt excluded or socially awkward can associate with in some respects. As I got to know Jimmy, though I empathised enough with him as he navigated the twists and turns life chucks at him, I felt less sorry for him as it all unfolded. Thing is, that don't mean he's any less sympathetic as a character as you get to know him a bit better. So don't start getting daft little ideas like that in your head. Only that he starts to show glimpses of emotional stoicism and tenacity. And that means that you don't have to feel as sorry for him as you might have thought early doors. There's a boss little backbone there. And all the better for it, I think. Besides being a real treat on the eyes, it's a cracking read to boot, is this. Words used sparsely at times when it suits, but picks up the pace when it needs to, without ever feeling like it's getting too wordy. It's one of them you can come back to repeatedly and still get something fresh out of. Understandably, it's picked up a fistful of awards down years from right across the board, and it seems to be one of them that's turned folks' heads with regards to the types of dizzy heights the old graphic novel thing can scale to, which has got to be a positive thing in the long run, hasn't it? It was well up there for me when I first read it, and 3 or 4 days later it's still well up there. I'll come back to it again and all, therefore. It's a belter, man. Absolute belter.
Like some comments.